Hi, welcome to my channel. You're watching this video in regards to the process of self-control, as well as what happens if we do not control our senses in terms of the happenings both internally and externally, especially in terms of our behavior. And this process is taken from the Bhagavad Gita, the second chapter, texts from 62 to 63. And it's about the eight stages of fall down due to uncontrolled mind. So basically, the process starts when we simply see the objects that would bring pleasure to our senses. So this is the contemplation of the senses of the objects of our senses. And once we see something for a long term, like be it a commercial or a person or maybe a movie or a certain event or an action that is happening on a daily basis or pretty often, this is something from which we develop attachment to. The attachment is the second step within this process, and this is basically developing a link between the senses of what we see or what we hear to the objects of senses. So this could be a form or a sound or anything like that. So we develop an attachment on our mind, and from that attachment, at some point we would start to experience the desire to have some certain objects that we have seen, heard, or experienced of. And the last is basically the third step within this process, and it means that we start to desire. The key word is to desire to have the objects of these senses, and out of this there could be the two outcomes. And in the first case, if we somehow satisfy our desires by obtaining the sense objects, this is from which we would develop some greed to have some more objects to be satisfied again. And it actually works in the way that at some point we would experience the need to have even more of the quantity or of quality in order to be satisfied as initially. But at the same time, if we actually are not able at some point to satisfy our lust, this is where the anger would come in. And anger is actually the fourth step in this process of fall down, and this is something that arises when our senses are not satisfied. And so imagine when a person is already angry, and the next step would be that he would experience some delusion in terms of losing the discrimination of what should and should not be done. So basically, for an angry person, there is an experience. He would usually experience some sort of a cloud within his mind of not actually seeing things as they are, because for an angry person, some things become exaggerated, like good things turn bad, and bad things turn right, and everything like that. And based on that delusion, the next step would be the bewilderment of memory. So this is basically when a person forgets the real position in life and purpose. Like at that point, he stops acting in the terms of place, time, and consequences. And the memory is something that based on which our intelligence works. And basically, the main purpose of intelligence is to discriminate, to distinguish between right or bad, as well as to make a decision. So this is something that is going to be lost in the next step, the loss of intelligence, which is basically losing the ability to distinguish what is to be done and what is not to be done, what is right and what is wrong. And if the intelligence is lost for the same angry person, this means that he's not able to make the right decision, and whatever the decision he would make, it would bring him just down. So this is basically the next step would be out of it the fall down to the state of the ignorance. So there are the three modes of material nature: the sattva, rajas, and tamas. And tamas is basically that state of ignorance. And if we actually look at the process from the very beginning, we would see that the final stage of ignorance, falling down to that stage, actually came from the very first step, which was called simply the contemplation, the objects of desires. So starting from the first step of simply seeing the objects, and how it all goes down to the falling down to the state of ignorance, we would see that this is something that has to be actually controlled. And in terms of the sense control, there is also the text in the Bhagavad Gita. It's in the 6th chapter. It's text number 6, where it is said that for him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, the mind will remain the greatest enemy. And this is basically a pretty good advice on why it's actually important to control our senses, and why it's dangerous to follow whatever our senses might want or might want or need. And so there has to be some kind of intelligence that has to be strong, and which already stands above the mind and the senses, because our senses are connected to mind, and within the field of mind we either enjoy or we suffer. But above that, there is an intelligence which distinguishes what is the next thing that we're going to do. So basically, this is one of the reasons why a person has to work on themselves, why an intelligence has to be developed, and why it's important to engage our senses in the right way, so that our intelligence is strong and the mind is also satisfied. So basically, that's it for today, and thank you for your attention.